You're listening to Inside Insight, the podcast that dives into the latest innovations and strategies in manufacturing, distribution, and Dynamics 365 Business Central. Brought to you by InsightWorks, this show features our hosts, Ryan and Emma, as they bring you expert conversations, industry insights, and practical advice to help you stay ahead in this constantly evolving world.
All right, let's dive in. Today, we're tackling shipping costs in Business Central. Specifically, we're looking at Dynamic Ship, a software extension that promises to make those costs a little less, well, scary. At least that's what the website says.
Yeah, shipping costs can be a real headache, right?
Absolutely. Between manual entry and the limited built-in Business Central functionality, it's easy to feel like you're losing control.
You're not wrong. And the consequences can be pretty significant. Inconsistent charges, wasted time, unhappy customers, you name it.
So before we get into how Dynamic Ship can help, could you quickly remind us what basic functionality Business Central offers for handling shipping costs?
Sure. It's got some basic stuff like flat fees, manual entry, and integrations with third-party carriers, but it's not exactly known for its flexibility. Like, imagine trying to offer free shipping on orders over $100, but only to customers in a certain loyalty program.
Yeah, sounds like a logistical nightmare.
Exactly. You'd probably be stuck manually adjusting each order, which is just asking for errors.
And that's where Dynamic Ship steps in, right?
Right. It brings in that automation that's often missing, letting you set markups, discounts, and even free shipping based on rules you define.
So it takes those pricing decisions out of our hands. Sounds promising.
It does. But there's this idea of freight price rules that you need to understand. Basically, you set up these rules, and Dynamic Ship automatically applies them to your sales orders.
Like a set of instructions for how to handle shipping costs.
Exactly. And the key thing is, they work in a hierarchy. The most specific rule wins. So a rule for a specific customer would override a rule for, say, a customer group. And if no other rule fits, a default rule takes over.
A cascading system. Makes sense. What if I wanted to create a new freight price rule? Why do I even start?
Well, you'd head over to the Freight Price Rules page in Business Central. Then you'd select the sales type, whether it's for a specific customer, a group, a campaign, or just everyone. You define the conditions, so maybe it's a minimum order total or specific product category. Then you choose how you want to handle the rate. Pass through the actual cost, add a markup, fix a price, offer a discount, even free shipping.
Free shipping. Music to my ears. And I bet it's something a lot of our listeners are interested in. Can you give an example of how Dynamic Ship handles that?
Sure. Let's say you've got a campaign for free shipping on orders over, say, $100. You create a rule just for that campaign, set it to don't add freight charge, and boom, Business Central automatically applies free shipping to any order that hits that $100 mark.
No more manual adjustments, no more risk of messing it up. I like it.
Exactly. Consistent, accurate pricing every time.
Okay, so we've talked about setting up the rules and how they're applied. But what about when you actually need to see the shipping cost on a specific order? Where does that happen?
Dynamic Ship integrates directly with Business Central sales orders. So you can review the calculated shipping cost before you finalize anything.
So we're getting efficiency, consistency, more control. Sounds great, but is there a catch? There's always a catch, right?
Well, you do have to remember that Dynamic Ship is a third-party extension, so there will be a cost involved.
That makes sense. But how do businesses weigh that cost against the potential benefits?
It's about looking at it as an investment. If you're spending hours on manual freight pricing, or if you're losing money because of inconsistent charges, then Dynamic Ship could pay for itself pretty quickly.
And if you're constantly running promotions or dealing with complex pricing, that added control and flexibility could be a game changer.
For sure. So we've identified the problem, looked at what Business Central offers, and explored how Dynamic Ship might offer a better way. What else should we think about before we wrap up our Dynamic Ship deep dive? We've only just scratched the surface here. There's so much more to Dynamic Ship than what we've talked about.
It's like opening a door to a whole world of freight pricing possibilities.
Yeah, and even if, after digging deeper, a business decides Dynamic Ship isn't right for them, the big takeaway here is that having a clear strategy for managing shipping costs is essential. Business Central's built-in features, or a third-party solution, whatever you choose, having a system in place is key.
I totally agree. Consistency, minimizing errors, and ultimately boosting profitability. And let's not forget about keeping customers happy.
You got it. Transparent and predictable shipping costs go a long way in building trust and loyalty.
So as we wrap up this part of our Dynamic Ship deep dive, a question for our listeners. Now that you know a bit more about managing freight pricing in Business Central, what steps can you take to optimize your shipping costs and improve your overall operations?
That's the big question, isn't it? And the answer is going to be different for every business. But there's one really interesting idea I want to leave you with.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more. What's this idea?
Well, think about this. What if, instead of just trying to minimize shipping costs, you could actually use them to your advantage, like to build customer loyalty or even boost sales?
You mean make shipping costs work for us instead of against us?
Exactly. It's a shift in perspective. We often think about minimizing those costs, but what if we flip the script and use them strategically?
I like where you're going with this. Give me an example.
Free shipping, right? It's like the holy grail for online shoppers. But instead of just offering it blanket to everyone, you could get creative, like free shipping on certain product bundles, or maybe a loyalty program where members get free shipping on every single order.
I see what you mean. It becomes a perk, a value add instead of just another expense.
Exactly. And the beauty of a tool like Dynamic Ship is that it gives you the automation to experiment with these different pricing models and promotions without drowning in manual work. It opens up a whole new world of possibilities.
So it sounds like Dynamic Ship could be a real game changer for businesses looking to streamline their freight pricing and, really take control of those costs. But like you said earlier, we've just skimmed the surface. What other features should we be looking at to decide if Dynamic Ship's the right fit?
That's where the real deep dive starts. Our source material touches on some key benefits, but to really know, you want to look into things like the reporting and analytics, how they integrate with different carriers, and what about the more complicated stuff, international shipping or handling hazardous materials?
Yeah, that makes sense. It all boils down to how well the tool actually matches your business needs.
Exactly. There's no one-size-fits-all solution. Taking the time to figure those things out is crucial. But putting aside the nuts and bolts of Dynamic Ship, I think this deep dive has shown us something super important. Having a well-thought-out plan for how you're going to manage shipping costs, it's crucial for any business, big or small.
I totally agree. Whether it's Business Central's built-in stuff, a third-party extension like Dynamic Ship, or maybe a mix of both, the important thing is that you have a system, a strategy in place. That's how you get consistency, avoid those little mistakes, and ultimately make more money.
Couldn't have said it better. And let's not forget about the impact on customers. Transparency, knowing what to expect, it builds trust and makes them want to come back for more.
It's all connected, isn't it? Those shipping costs, they might seem like a small thing, but they have a huge impact on the big picture, on the whole customer experience.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want you to think about how you're managing shipping costs right now. Are you just trying to keep them low, or are you using them strategically to achieve those bigger business goals?
That's a great question for everyone to ponder. And if you're intrigued by the idea of making your freight pricing work smarter, not harder, and unlocking that strategic potential, I'd definitely recommend taking a closer look at Dynamic Ship. See if it's right for you.
Couldn't agree more. There's a ton of information out there just waiting to be discovered.
Wow. It's been really interesting learning about freight pricing and how a tool like Dynamic Ship can help businesses get a handle on it.
Yeah, definitely. It just shows how something that seems like a small detail, shipping costs, can actually have a big impact on, well, pretty much everything.
Absolutely. Efficiency, profits, happy customers, it all ties back to how you handle those costs.
Exactly. And, there's one more important takeaway I think we should mention before we finish up here. Adaptability.
Adaptability. I'm not sure I follow.
Well, think about it. E-commerce, logistics, it's always changing, right? New shipping options pop up, what customers expect changes, and businesses need to be able to keep up to adjust their strategies. If your approach to freight pricing is too rigid, too stuck in its ways, it's not going to work in the long run.
So it's not just about finding the perfect solution right now. It's about choosing something that can grow and change with you.
Exactly. Whether you go with Dynamic Ship or stick with what Business Central offers, make sure you're choosing a path that gives you the power to adapt and, really thrive as your business grows.
That's a great point. It's easy to get caught up in solving today's problems. But the businesses that really succeed, they're the ones that are already thinking about tomorrow's challenges, building in that flexibility from the start.
I couldn't agree more. So as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of freight pricing, I want to leave our listeners with this thought. Don't just manage your shipping costs, Master them, understand what they mean for your business, use them strategically, and be ready to adapt as things change.
Well said. And on that note, it's time to wrap up this episode of The Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time for another exciting exploration.